So the balanced data slate is later this month, and it's a big opportunity for Games Workshop to make struggling armies better and overpowered armies more in line. Though in this video I thought we'd talk about some internal balance things and talk about one unit to buff and nerf for every single army in Warhammer 40k. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought it would be interesting to focus on a few units for each faction, and in particular things that might get points adjustments in the upcoming Warhammer 40k rules update. At the moment, the biggest thing on the horizon for Warhammer 40k rules updates is the upcoming balanced data slate. Games Workshop have confirmed this is coming towards the end of January. They often drop on a Thursday, so I'd probably look for it somewhere around the 25th or so. And it will bring some big points and rules changes to Warhammer 40k. Lots of factions individually might like some small rules tweaks of one sort or another, and they might well do things to the core game as they did last time, but today I thought it might be interesting to take a video to focus solely on points, go through literally every army in the game, and if Games Workshop has to buff one thing and nerf one thing, what are maybe some of the better options that they might choose. For this one I've tried to pick some units that are maybe either a little bit more central to the faction or just seem particularly overcosted or undercosted for their armies. Though obviously I'd say that there's some factions in the game that just don't really need anything getting nerfed at the moment and could just do with a few buffs to get them more in line with the rest. For each army I'll go through a couple of picks and then talk about a few honourable mentions as well that might also attract attention, as well as a few thoughts as to whether the faction overall needs tuning up or tuning down in general. Feel free to let me know what you'd most like changed in your army, the couple of units that you'd most like to see with points decreases, and the couple of units that you think most need a points increase if they're either overpowered or just a bit too auto-include. Jumping straight in, let's start with the Imperium and talk through Space Marines. A bit of a weird one in in-game power, the overall win rates aren't excessive, around about 46% or so in tournaments, but just due to their massive unit pool, they do often have lists that still tend to punch up at the highest level. It seems that Ultramarines Vanguard is pretty much the flavour of the month, with Deep Striking Centurions with Uriel Ventris and Infiltrating Calgar. Overall though, I feel like the faction's not in the worst place, and does have the option to play strong. There's definitely a massive amount of things that are overcosted and could use a boost. Perhaps if I had to choose just one single unit to boost, I feel like it would be interesting if Games Workshop actually decided to make Reavers get good somehow. I guess likely with dropping points in this kind of update, though having some sort of rules boost would probably be preferable eventually. It just feels a bit sad for them that the spooky scary Phobos Marines have basically never really been particularly strong in game. Otherwise for potential choices, things like the Tactical Marines, the Hammerfall Bunker, the Storm Planes, Stern Guard or Outriders, I feel like all of those could pretty well go down, just given their competition within the Codex. If I had to choose one unit to go up in cost, I feel like the Inceptors or maybe the Scouts would be pretty reasonable choices. They wouldn't need to go up much I don't think, but they do seem to be rather auto-include for the Space Marine objective scoring game. I'm really not sure why they decided to drop the cost from Inceptors from 115 down to 110 last time round. Most competitive lists were already taking them for their 3-inch drop to guarantee secondaries and having quite good damage already. And I feel like Scouts perhaps seem a little bit weirdly cheap at 55 points. I feel like if they were 60 they'd still get taken quite a bit as a really quite cheap infiltration unit with some good advantages. We'll do the divergent chapters towards the end of the Imperium, but next let's jump forward to the Imperial Guard. The Astra Militarum are getting win rates of around about 45%, occasionally people are managing to win tournaments with them, but overall I'd still say they're an army that overall needs a boost rather than a nerf. I'd say that overall the internal balance of the Codex actually isn't too bad. Most datasheets are genuinely usable in competitive lists, just the army's a little bit underpowered as a whole. Maybe for a particular choice you could boost the Death Strike a bit. Its rules in 10th edition are just far less overwhelming compared with 9th, where Games Workshop actually gave it a brief window of being good for a bit before going back to 10th edition and then piling on more cost with the indirect fire nerf, which really wasn't needed for this guy. I feel like it could get massively cheaper for what it does really. Otherwise the Valkyrie just really struggles to compete with the Chimera at 200 points versus like 75 or so. Some of the lesser played Rust variants, like maybe the Eradicator, could go down. Rough Riders and Field Ordnance also feel like things that are overcosted compared with the competitors. If there wanted one unit to put up for the Imperial Guard, it would probably be Lord Solar. He just seems to be absolutely auto-including competitive lists at the moment, both farming CP and being basically the god of orders. Overall, the strength of Imperial Guard needs to go up, but I feel like if they could make him less of just an auto pick, that would be sensible. It's a bit strange to see Fancy Horseman leading just about every competitive guard army into the field. Next up, for the Adeptus Mechanicus, their codex has only just come out, and given that they don't really have that much players, I'm a bit skeptical about early tournament data to see where they eventually wind up. It looks like their overall win rate's sort of lower mid-ish, but plenty of players have gone, say, like 4-on-1 at tournaments over the past couple of weekends. Though overall there's just been a fair bit of doom and gloom about the internal balance of the codex. Cataphrons and Chicken Walkers maybe being a bit undercosted compared with the rest, and several lists building around Skitarii Hunter cohort with excessive amounts of Tabaxi, which not that many people have just massive amounts of units of. For standout things that maybe most need a boost, Call does feel kind of ridiculously overcosted at 180 points for his abilities, particularly as he arguably got a bit of a side grade to nerf in the codex. He could be significantly cheaper, and I don't think people would complain too much there. Otherwise, maybe the Castellan robots, the Rostalkers, and the Sidonian Scatros could all go down a bit. Having the Castellan robots be credible mainline damage dealers for the faction would be nice. If you had to nerf any one unit, maybe putting the Cataphron Breachers back up to 150 points might not be the worst for internal balance. Obviously, presuming other mainline damage dealers went down to compensate so you had a few more options. I feel like in general though, the biggest wish list for AdMech players is that Games Workshop does something to make the overall strength of the army just better on a per model basis. Maybe something kind of radical like make them all hit on 3s when previously they didn't, and then perhaps even increase the cost of the miniatures on an individual level so you don't need quite as many hordes of Skitarii to make any one army list. It genuinely might be better for the faction if they got a rules boost and then actually most of the units in the codex went up. Next up, there's the Adepta Sororitas, who are getting win rates of around about 50%, overall really quite well balanced against 40k as a whole on the competitive scene. Though I think a lot of people who actually play Sisters would say that the internal balance of the units needs looking at, and quite a few of their most iconic damage dealers are getting left on the shelf. Maybe for one unit to give a points cut to, Sisters Repentia really don't feel that dangerous for the cost. Again, either a rules boost or a points cut would be nice for them to have them feeling like the maniacs with chainsaws they were in the past. And otherwise, most of the elite infantry just doesn't feel as dangerous as it used to. Retributors, Sacrosants, Paragon suits without VAR, Zephyrim and Dominions. These feel like they should be the units that are carrying the staple damage dealing of the Codex, but really aren't compared with tanks and things like Arcoflagellants right now. At the moment, a lot of lists tend to run 3 Castigators or just go heavy into Sisters armor. As a result, maybe the Castigator could go up a little, nothing excessive, but maybe just try and make Sisters armor not one of the more default ways to play Sisters, perhaps. For the Custodes, they're generally considered one of the weakest armies in Warhammer 40k right now, win rates of 43% and very few tournament performances. They got a lot of nerfs last time round. I feel like one thing that Custodes players would like is a reversal to the Devastating Wounds nerf, maybe making their Aegis of the Emperor protect against devastating wounds as well as mortal wounds. That'd be some ways to helping them be a bit more viable, but besides that, most of their units just feel a bit overcosted at the moment for what they do. Virtus Praetors, I feel like, are perhaps still stand out as one of the units that most needs help, though realistically just about everything in the index could probably go down a little bit to try and push them a bit more towards the mid-tier and more like 50% win rates rather than 43. Given they're one of the weakest factions in the game, probably nothing really needs a points nerf. I guess if I had to point to any one thing, then I guess they could probably afford to put the Caladius up a tiny bit and it'd still be good. Presuming quite a lot of things got good power boosts within the index, I think a small 5 or 10 point increase on that would be bearable. Next up, the Imperial Knights are also on a similar sort of level of Custodes and really struggling right now. Overall, they need a big boost. I think some people would like to see the return of the Bondsman abilities to affect the big Knights, even if they had to change the points cost in some way to reflect that. Otherwise, for points boost, maybe the Knight Valiant stands out as a unit that could go down in points quite a bit. I didn't think it was enormously stand out before when you could threaten Overwatch with that enormous conflagration cannon, and now Titanic units can't fire Overwatch. It really feels like it's paying far too much for what it does. Otherwise, most of the army does need help in some way. Maybe the Preceptor also stands out for something that could use an above average points decrease, but in general I think they need a bit more raw power to compete with the others and the Chaos Knights. As they're still one of the weakest factions in the game right now, I wouldn't really say that anything enormously needs nerfs. If something absolutely had to go up, maybe Canis Rex. He's one of the most efficient big knights, and a tiny points increase would be bearable for that for internal balance, I guess, presuming much of the rest of the army got stronger. The Grey Knights are also one of the weaker factions in 40k despite cool teleport movement abilities. Tournament win rates of around 45%, so would probably need to have more boost than nerfs overall. I feel like perhaps high on the wish list for them might be something to help them out a bit more against tanks, though I feel like any sweeping rules changes like giving them stats for demon hammers and things probably isn't going to happen in this kind of balance update. Otherwise though, if Games Workshop did stick purely with points, perhaps the Nemesis Dread Knight could go down in points a bit more. It still seems to be rarely played, even with the points decrease it had since the start of the edition, and maybe just doesn't really do its role of smashing enemy heavies all that well, though that might be more due to datasheet rules than points cost, I guess. Otherwise, again, a small decrease for much of the rest of the army could be fine. Maybe the standard Dreadnought and Interceptors could be other things to target. Things like the Terminators and Purifiers tend to get used more than them. Overall, as with the previous few, they more need buffs than nerfs. If I had to pick one unit to go up, it might be Caldor Drago. He's just a very hard unit to pass up at the moment, with really good combat stats, and near guaranteeing a charge from reserve if you budget a command point reroll. He does seem to be kind of dominant and in the vast majority of army lists, perhaps overshadowing the other characters a little bit. Presuming overall army strength went up, I feel like he could bear a small points increase. Next up, for the Blood Angels, they seem to be one of the most struggling Space Marine chapters right now, at least for the people playing them more as actual Blood Angels, as opposed to just generic Space Marines throwing in a Librarian Dreadnought. Their win rates are also pretty low at around about 45%. They definitely need to get a bit stronger, and I feel like for them a focal rules boost to the Sons of Sanguinius detachment would be appreciated. It really doesn't compete well with the Codex detachments at all. Despite previously going down in cost, the Sanguinary Guards really need to go down further, I think. It'd be great to get them to a point where they're actually tempting to use as a focal buffed units with character attachments, as it feels like they probably should be. Though besides perhaps a few choices like Death Company with Lamates or the Librarian Dreadnought, and perhaps the Sanguinary Priest and Dante, most of the rest of the index does feel kind of overcosted, and most other things could have at least small points cuts, things like the Furioso Dreadnoughts, Death Company Intercessors, and several of the other characters. Overall, I'm not sure I'd put any of the units up for Blood Angels. Nothing really stands out as to auto-include. If Games Workshop absolutely had to put up one thing, then maybe the Librarian Dreadnought by like 5 points. The ability to ping units around the table with its teleport move is absolutely massive. I still think that it could easily see play in things like the Gladius Task Force detachment, teleporting in the Fire Discipline combo to rinse some enemies. Just throwing Eradicators around the board can be pretty cool as well. Next up, for the Space Wolves, their win rates are around about 50%, which is fairly well balanced, and a lot of players make use of the Stormlance Task Force with Thunder Wolves to get those numbers. As with the Blood Angels, a focal rules boost to the Champions of Rus would be really nice, which is basically just not played competitively versus all the Codex Space Marine things. It is considered underpowered. They do have a fair few datasheets that I think are really quite playable. Maybe for things that could use a boost would be things like Wolf Scouts. Just strange that they're 85 points versus the 55 points of the regular Scouts, even with a few small advantages over them. Otherwise, Longfangs seem a bit overcosted versus the regular Devastators. Both of the Wolf Flyers are really costly for what they bring to the table, and even if their damage and defense stats really aren't too bad, Wolfen could probably still go down a bit, as they have their big liability of being objective control 0, and still don't really punch up too well against tough targets. If there had to be one unit to nerf, it might be the Thunderwolves slightly, just for a bit more internal balance, as a massive chunk of competitive lists seem to build around these as the core of their army, often spamming 3 units of 6, which is probably not too desirable. Maybe pushing them up from 90 points to 95 points could be a small nudge in that general direction. I feel like they might have to be kind of careful with that, as that could pretty directly affect the overall power of the army, and they might need some other boost to compensate elsewhere. Next up, for the Deathwatch, they also seem to be one of the more struggling Space Marine chapters right now, and aren't enormously well played on tournament scenes. They've got win rates of around about 45% or so, and overall could certainly do with some boosts. I feel like within their index, actually the majority of their datasheets are kind of overcosted. Pretty much every kill team bar the Proteus and the Deathwatch veterans could probably go down a little. Maybe the Indomitor Primaris kill team being a good example, and otherwise Artemis and the Corvus Blackstar could also drop a bit. They're also kind of rare sights on the tournament tables. I feel like overall Deathwatch are in a place where their good units aren't undercosted as well. If I had to rate their units, I'd probably rate the Proteus kill team as their single best pick out of them. But even that just doesn't really seem like it actually needs a points increase. It is very expensive for the Space Marine profiles in the first place, even if it can deal really quite a lot of damage. Next up for the divergent chapters, we've got the Dark Angels. I feel like their codex really can't be too far away, so any balanced Dataslate things that they get are likely to be minimal. I guess the new points cost that they issue with their codex, though, will be a good opportunity for them to shake things up for the Unforgiven. When their codex comes out, hopefully they do something to help out the Unforgiven task force. A few of their stratagems are okay, but the core rule and the reliance on units being battle shocked is just rather weird to get actually very good. I guess their codex might bring some detachments for Ravenwing and Deathwing. For units to boost as it stands though, maybe the Ravenwing Black Knights could be an option to go down a bit. They're rarely seeing much competitive play. And several of the characters just feel very underwhelming for what they do, like Ezekiel and Asmodai. I feel like they could really use some rules rewrites to make them a bit more exciting come the codex. Lionel Johnson as well really isn't that great for 380 points worth of model. Sure, he's very tough to kill and has a good chance to win any one fight, but just for one fighty character on the board, that's an enormous amount of points there, and again doesn't get played in competitive lists as a result. If one unit had to go up in cost, it'd probably be Azrael for me. At 105 points, I'd currently consider him so good he's basically auto-include. The farming command points is pretty big on its own, never mind the fact that he does have some okay melee threat, gives you sustained hits and a 4+ invulnerable save for the unit. It just feels like slightly mad all-round value, and it'd still be great even if you got something like a 5 or 10 point increase. For the Black Templars, compared with the other Divergent chapters, they are by far in the lead in terms of competitive play. Win rates are around 55%, and as a result I feel like many of their units are probably going to get small points bumps from Games Workshop. When the last balance update came out, it did feel weird just how low some of the points costs were for the units. Out of their index, if they did put one unit down, it might be the Emperor's Champion perhaps. I feel like he's not unusable, but is probably less good than any of the other units besides maybe the generic Marshal or the Castellan, which I guess could also be candidates for that. Otherwise though, I really wouldn't be too surprised if Games Workshop slightly increased the cost on just about every other unique unit. Perhaps the Firstborn Crusader squads might be reasonable to put up a little bit, compared with just about any other Space Marine unit in the game at 65 points for 5 Marines with a las cannon special weapon and power weapon is kind of weirdly undercosted, particularly when just about any other Space Marine profile costs 16 points. Otherwise, I'd guess the Primaris Crusader squad, Helbrex, Grimaldus, and the multi-melter vehicles might all go up. I'd say none of them needs to by very much, to be honest. The multi-melter vehicles might be nice just to have it around about 10 points increase versus their standard equivalents. I feel like when they were like 20 points more, they just seemed overcosted, and currently much of them are 5 points increases over the heavy stubbers, and that seems like it's an overly good deal. For the Chaos Space Marines, they're currently rated as one of the very strongest armies in the game right now, win rates of around 55% or so, and along with Aeldari, they're the faction that's winning all the tournaments out there, just having exceptional levels of power with their most competitive lists, partly due to the power of their stratagems with the Nurgle hides from shooting one and the undivided full rerolls one. It does seem pretty inevitable that these guys are going to get toned down a bit. I'd say at the moment internal balance isn't that great though. There is plenty of stuff that could absolutely go down in cost as well as the stuff that could go up. Perhaps chief amongst the things that could get buffs might be things like the Lord Discordant, Vashtor the Archifane, the Felgor Beastmen, and maybe the Helldrake. There's a lot of more mid stuff that just doesn't really see too much play, but that's arguably due to being overshadowed by the good stuff. If they had to pick one single unit to nerf, it'd probably be the Chosen. Just about every list is spamming multiple units of those in Rhinos with Chaos Lords attached. With the Mark and the Dark Pat system, they're just absolute blenders, where 5 units plus a Lord can wipe most things in the game. They were good before the last balance update and got a big and rather unexpected points cut. Otherwise, the other staples of competitive lists might well get changed around. Forge Fiends, Accursed Cultists, and Obliterators seem like the other things that are most likely to see attention. Perhaps Warp Talons as well feel like they're perhaps excessive for what they do at 100 points. I feel like some small increases to those will be pretty reasonable to put them more at the level with the other units in the codex, and they're still going to have stacks of damage with their marks plus stratagem system. Next up, we've got the Death Guard. In general, I'd argue that the Sons of Mortarion are in a pretty good place in 40k right now. Win rates are around about 50%, pretty well balanced versus the field, with most unique units being really quite usable. There's maybe just a few things that stick out one way or the other. The Blight Lord Terminators feel like a unit that could use a further points drop, even if they are kind of surprisingly cheap Terminator profiles right now. They just feel very outclassed by the Death Shroud in my opinion. And otherwise, maybe for unique Death Guard things, some of the lesser played Virion characters such as the Plague Surgeon could drop a bit. And I guess some of the generic chaos stuff after that, I feel like Games Workshop's being sensible by keeping the focus on the actual unique units. For one unit that could probably be bumped in points a bit, Plague Burst Crawlers seem to be very overrepresented in optimised lists. I've seen a whole ton of lists that just run 3 of the things as a starting point, which probably feels a bit too auto-include versus the other demon engines and the damage dealer options out there. I think a small points increase wouldn't hurt them, and they'd still be very good choices. The World Eaters seem similarly in quite a good spot in 40k right now. Win rates are around 52%, which is really quite strong, better than the majority of armies out there. Their weakest units in the book tend to be the generic Chaos stuff once again. You could boost things like the Helldrake or Defiler maybe. Though again, like the Death Guard, I feel like it's not an unreasonable choice from Games Workshop to keep the generic Chaos stuff a bit more peripheral for the army and focus more on the actual unique kits. Out of the properly unique World Eaters units, I'd say maybe Khorne Berserkers could probably afford to drop 5 points down to 95. Currently they seem to be used in a bit more of a peripheral role for the army, used in small numbers in competitive lists, often just as escorts for characters like the Master of Executions and perhaps Khan the Betrayer. It would be kind of fun to see them compete a bit more for the actual mainline damage dealers versus the 8-bound, who tend to be the default options for the heavy lifting right now. If I perhaps had to pick one unit to nerf, it would probably be Angron. I certainly still want him to be strong, but just about every World Eaters list seems to start with their own Primarch now. It'd be nice to see some more competitive lists viable that don't just start with the Primarch of the World Eaters, and the army would still be as strong if played without. And maybe given that they are a little bit stronger than most factions in the game, that could be one way to give the army a small power nerf if Games Workshop chose to. If so, I don't think it should be very much though. You definitely wouldn't want to make the Red Angel unplayable. Lastly, for the deity-specific Chaos Legions, we have the Thousand Sons. Win rates are around about 49% and pretty well balanced, though I do feel like lists for them are maybe kind of shoehorned in to certain builds, almost all of them revolving around Magnus himself, and then lots of Rubik Marines backed up by Sorcerers. Maybe not the worst thing in the world, but other unique units aren't getting as much of a look in as they used to. Zangors haven't really seen too much play since the edition dropped. They could maybe afford to go down a little bit, like another 5 points, though you don't really want everyone to just be incentivized just to spam them. And otherwise, for the unique stuff, maybe Scarab Occult Terminators could drop a few points as well. Since the stratagem and points changes last time round, the use of those seems to have really dropped off in competitive lists, even with the big damage combos available. Otherwise, there are plenty of generic Chaos units like Helldrakes again, and a few of the tanks that just seem kind of questionable to bother running in a Thousand Sons army list, where maybe points cuts would put them in a place where they're a bit more considered versus the rest, even if you don't really want them stealing the limelight for the core of the army. I guess if you absolutely had to increase the cost of one unit, Magnus could maybe go up again. I feel like that could be a bit of a questionable thing to do though, and if so, you might need to compensate it for other buffs elsewhere, maybe making other things like the standard rubrics and sorcerers go down a bit, just as so many lists have him as an absolute anchor, and rely on him for damage and boosting the other units as well, so it's maybe kind of hard to get the right points cost where you could happily either take him or leave him. I think it's perhaps arguably the single best unit though, he'd probably be the one that I'd choose. I feel like if Games Workshop did that, it might not be the most popular decision unless it was compensated for drops to other units. Next up for Chaos, we've got the Chaos Knights, and they're winning around about 51% of games, so fairly well balanced overall externally. Though again, they're one of the armies that's got a clear internal balance problem. All the lists that are doing well are the ones that are spamming excessive War Dogs, maybe one big knight if you're lucky. And given that most players rarely get into Chaos Knights for War Dog spam, it feels like as a result you could probably afford to put up a few of the best War Dogs and points a little bit, and then drop the points on basically all the big knights to compensate. Out of any of the big knights, probably the Knight Abominant is the one that most needs to go down a bit. He's been overcosted since 10th edition came out. I feel like his melee and his Battle Shock rule both are kind of fine, but he's perhaps let down a bit by the randomness and the low AP on that big Volkite gun. Otherwise, I feel like all the other big knights could go down by a bit to try and make them more tempting and viable versus the War Dogs. It'd be nice to get the faction to a place where it's a lot more credible to run a few big knights and just a few dogs as opposed to spamming them. For the War Dog side of things, I guess perhaps the ones that most stick out as could go up might be the War Dog Carnivore and maybe the War Dog Brigand. The Carnivore went down to perhaps a surprising level at 140 points. I certainly saw a few lists running them at 160. Maybe a points cost somewhere in the middle of the two might be more appropriate for them. Otherwise, maybe the Brigand and Stalker could still go up something like an extra 5 points, presuming it was well compensated for by the big knights getting significantly stronger and making up for any loss of power. Next up, the Chaos Demons have win rates of around about 47%, kind of lower mid overall. I feel like while their external balance isn't awful compared with some factions, they probably need more help than they need nerfs. I feel like discussion I've seen around them is that just quite a lot of units don't feel enormously exciting to put on the table. Perhaps a few things that stand out for buffs a little bit would be things like the Demonettes that still feel overcosted despite points decreases, and maybe a few of the bigger chunkier models like Plague Drones or Fiends of Slanesh, and some of the many cast of characters are certainly overshadowed, but that's probably always going to be the case. Overall, I feel like the faction probably needs more boost than it does nerfs. I guess if things absolutely had to go up in one way or another, Nurglings might go up a little from 35 points. They do seem a little bit auto-include for screening and secondary sort of purposes, and perhaps have the slight complicating factor that their datasheet can be taken in a lot of the other Chaos armies, so you tend to see loads of them out there as well. Besides that, perhaps Celeste seems kind of stand out for the cost at just 120 points. The Vengeful Allegiance does feel like one of the single strongest datasheets out there, and could probably bear a slight points increase, provided of course that other things went down to compensate, and the overall strength of the faction went up a tiny bit, to try and push the faction a little bit, maybe towards the 50% win kind of mark. Finally, let's get on to the Xenos, and starting out with the big bad of 10th edition with Aeldari. Last balanced data slate, they were winning around about 70% of games. Now they're down to more like 58 or so after some broad nerfs, and it seems that as still the single strongest faction in the game, they're going to get more of that. Within the index though, there certainly are a few units that could still drop down. Maybe Howling Banshees could go down 5 points or so. Their damage output just isn't that great, and they're really quite fragile. And even if they have their useful sticky objectives rule, the Storm Guardians could also drop down a bit. Their damage and defense is kind of bad, and the Aeldari Flyers seem to compete kind of poorly as gun platforms. They probably wouldn't be the worst to put down a little. Otherwise though, they're certainly going to get more nerfs than they do buffs this time around, I suspect. I feel like it might not be the worst thing for the state of the game if they're no longer the single strongest army in 40k after this update, and I feel like Games Workshop probably aren't going to go too lightly on them as a result. Perhaps the single unit that I most want to see a points increase on would probably be the Night Spinner. They're often taken in trios in competitive lists, both a bit of devastating wound indirect fire and a fairly nasty slowing down an enemy unit kind of rule that can really keep certain models out of the game, and fate dice can allow them to punch in some devastating wounds more than they'd normally be able to. Otherwise, definitely high on the agenda might be the Incarn. It does cost a lot of points, but still bounces around the board and is a massive problem for what it does. The Wraithguard block that stomps into the midfield with a Spirit Seer is very, very good. Phoenix Lord Fugan often appears completely solo and maybe isn't being used in the way that Games Workshop might have intended for him. Illican Rangers are very good for lone operatives. Certain characters like the Farseer and maybe the Autarch Wayleaper could also go up a bit and would still get taken, I think. And maybe anti-tank firepower platforms like the Warwalkers. I guess they could go down the rules nerf point of view, maybe slightly tone down the Aeldari Battle Host rerolls perhaps. Though I feel like they're in a position where if they wanted to address them with points cost changes, they absolutely could do so. Next up, and the darker flavour of Space Elves, are the other end of the 40k power spectrum, again one of the weakest armies in 40k, and in serious need of an overall boost. I feel like the biggest target for making units better should probably be to the Drukhari melee units, either as some sort of boosted rule to maybe make their pain tokens more dangerous for those units, or I guess if not, they could put the points cost yet cheaper. Maybe Witches might be towards the top of the tree for units to get better, otherwise things like Grotesques or Incubi, maybe Hellions perhaps, some of the characters, and pretty much the majority of the rest of the index besides Lance platformers, Mandrakes and the Talos and Kronos pain engines. Given that they're one of the weakest factions and one of the hardest armies to win with, I don't really think that anything actually needs to go up in cost, particularly as they already did that with Ravagers last time round. That might have partly been aimed at the fact that Inari can take the Drukhari lance weapons, and that's almost kind of problematic really, given that they can access the battle host rerolls, and Drukhari units actually often get stronger in an Inari force, so that kind of makes them hard to balance there. I guess if you absolutely had to say that they were increasing the points cost on one unit, maybe an extra 5 points again on Ravagers or Scourges could be borne, but that would absolutely have to come paired with really good boost to the rest of the index, whether it was points or rules. For the Tyranids, they feel like their detachments aren't in the worst place in the world right now. That overall their performance is around about 47% wins, maybe lower mid overall. And a few of the detachments do feel significantly better than others. Crusher Stampede in particular will be quite nice to get a boost for if Games Workshop is going to go down that route of actually trying to balance detachments against each other. Might be kind of unlikely given their attitude to that in the past though. I feel like perhaps more so than most armies though, the Tyranids really have some massive winners and losers in their codex, just a whole bunch of units that are weirdly overcosted compared with their peers, and a lot of things that could really easily be targeted for big points cuts. Maybe the single most obvious one might be the Tyrannifex, which just bizarrely went up about 50 points despite its ability getting a bit worse, and that one seemingly was completely at random, going from a good unit to a very bad one with no break in between. Otherwise though, there's just really quite a lot of other overcosted stuff. The Swarm Lord, Hive Guard, the Spore Assist and Spore Mines in general, the Harpy and Hive Crone, Tyranid Warriors, the Toxicrene, and the Screamer Killer. I feel like literally all of those could do with points cuts really. Quite a significant chunk of their codex there. If Games Workshop were to give those already significant boosts and make them good competitive units, maybe a few things could afford to go up a little. For the most auto-include Tyranid things around, some combination of Neurolictors and the Death Leaper seem to be present in the vast majority of Tyranid competitive lists, which perhaps shows they're a little bit overshadowing other options and a bit good for their cost. Otherwise I feel like Gargoyles would still get played if they went up by 5 points or so. Though between all that, they probably need a small boost rather than a small nerf, and just have to be well compensated for by other things. For their disciples, the Genestealer Cults have a win rate of around about 48% at the moment, kind of mid-tier within Warhammer 40k, and perhaps need more internal balance changes more than anything else, and maybe just a few underwhelming units pushed into a bit more viability, even if they didn't necessarily add loads of faction strength. To me, the single unit that feels the most useless in the Genestealer Cult roster is the Magus. A situational hit debuff and not much more than that seems very excessive for the points that it costs at the moment, particularly when it's in competition with so many other usable characters. Otherwise, for units I'd focus on, maybe the Metamorphs, the Jackal Alphas, and the Goliath Rock Grinder could all go down in cost. All of those are just rare to be picked compared with the things that compete with them. The Goliath Rock Grinder has okay damage, but is just really quite fragile for its 155 point cost. For the Genestealer Cult, I'd be a bit wary about nerfing anything really. I feel like the top end of their codex is good, but not so good that anything really sticks out enormously, and I feel like if you were to tone down any one part of their combo, army strength would be affected quite a bit. Maybe if Games Workshop did have to put up the cost on something, it might be either the Neophytes, Primus, or the Reductus Saboteur. They tend to be some of the most common staples and lists, though if so, then that really wouldn't have to be by much at all, and again should be well compensated for by other worse units getting better. Next up, for the Space Dwarves, the leagues of Votann are winning around about 55% of games, really quite strong compared with other armies out there, though maybe not actually punching up to the very top spots of tournaments as much as things like Chaos or Aeldari. As a result, with those sort of numbers, however, they are probably going to get more nerfs than buffs, if Games Workshop does want to nudge them back towards the 50% sort of mark. If one unit had to be boosted, it would probably be Uthar the Destined for me. He definitely does have some interesting things to bring to the table, and is a bit fightier than most of the other characters, but he just feels like he doesn't really need the big points premium put on him compared with, say, the standard car. He could probably afford to drop 10 points or so. Otherwise, for units in the index, perhaps the Chthonian Berserks or the non-Sagittor Hearthkin Warriors could do with dropping a little bit. Neither of those feel enormously exciting for their cost right now. If I had to pick any one unit to nerf, then it might be the Sagittor Transport. These things are spammed massively, and so much to the extent that people seem to be happy to take units as almost like a tax to get more Sagittors in the list, which probably shows that they're overtuned versus the contents. Maybe you could put the cost of these up and the cost of their contents down a little bit, perhaps. Otherwise, for strong units, the Hearthguard might well go up a bit, maybe the Thunderkin or Land Fortress a touch. I don't think that any of those would have to be anything particularly major though. Just small nudges to get them back a bit more in line with the other factions of 40k. For the Tau Empire, their tournament win rates are hovering around about 49%, kind of well balanced versus the other factions. I'd say that on top of that, internal balance is better than almost every other army's indexes right now. Even if there are a few niggles, like say the Crisis Suit weapons being pretty much spam cyclic ion blasters, and they could do with a bit of a fix. The vast majority of the units that you can point to in the roster are at least usable in some capacity. For one unit to boost, it might be nice to actually make the tactical drones into a unit that you might consider taking, rather than the weirdly expensive 70 points before that they are at the moment. Just seems like they're a unit that you may as well not have in the roster if they're going to cost that much. Otherwise, maybe the Storm Surge could go down a bit. Perhaps the Fire Warrior Strike team could also drop another 5 points or so. I feel like that might have them being a bit more interesting for battle line infantry versus the Breachers. If they were to nerf a unit though, it would probably be the Forge World Tetras. If anything, they do seem to be the most auto-include unit for town competitive lists, just with their high-intensity marker lights both allowing you to have a durable and fast spotter unit, but also to get full rerolls to hit against their targets, which in a big way makes them the best synergy unit in the entire index. It just feels odd for the faction to be so reliant on one Forge World unit to get a lot of their damage output, at least on the most optimized sort of list level. I guess if they went significantly up in cost, you might need to reduce the cost of other units in the army though, due to the downsides of having a powerful synergy piece nerfed. Next up for the greenskins, the Orks have win rates of around about 51%, slightly on the higher end of Warhammer 40k, though not by loads and loads. Their codex is coming sometime in spring, like the Town Custodes. I'd guess that might actually be quite a big help for the faction, as currently they've just got access to one very melee-themed attachment, and if they got access to a shooting-themed one, then that might help out a bunch of the units that most need it. Besides maybe flash kits with Captain Badrug, I feel just about every single other Orc shooting unit could probably use a points cut. Tank busters feel like a quite bad example that just aren't really that efficient against their attended prey. Being locked to a weird mix of profiles within the unit doesn't help with that, but otherwise buggies, planes, the looters, maybe even mech guns aren't particularly exciting for their cost right now. Plus a few other things like perhaps the Stomper, the Gorka and Morkanaut, and maybe the Werboy. For units that could maybe afford to go up a little bit, perhaps Mosrog Scragbad could be one of the ones that wouldn't be too terrible to see a points increase. I think it'd still be good as an extra 5 or 10 points given how auto-include he is at the moment. More competitive lists seem to be choosing to run him than aren't. Otherwise, staples include Trucks, Gretchen, and the standard War Boss. Again, I feel like all of those could be fine if you bolted on an extra 5 points for them. Again, lightly compensating with some boosts to other things that aren't quite as strong. Finally, we have the forces of the Necrons with their new codex, and they seem to be doing okay in tournament performance, with win rates of around about 53 to 54% initially, though it is very early days at the moment. I feel like most Necron players might agree that the codex doesn't have great internal balance though. In particular, the C'tan are just massively powerful with their 5+ feel no pain that they gained with little points adjustment. They seem like they're pretty much auto-include for most lists, and I have seen some people spamming crazy lists with like 6 of them. And also the Canoptech Wraiths feel like they overshadow just about any other frontline Necron unit at the moment, with their massive toughness backed up by a Technomancer. They just seem better to build around as a frontline unit as opposed to Warriors, Immortals, or the Lich Guard by comparison. Otherwise, for things to be boosted a bit, Warriors I think could afford to go down a bit if they are sticking with their less good reanimation rule and weaker Gauss Reapers. 10 points is just too much for them now. At least dropping down to 9 points a model seems like a good start. Otherwise, there are definitely a whole bunch of more underwhelming datasheets out there. The Obelisk, Trazyn the Infinite, Crypto Thralls given the changes to reanimation and their stat lines. The Triarch Praetorians aren't particularly exciting, and the Stalker feels like it's still a bit costly. I feel like it could also be interesting to have the Scorpec Destroyers drop down a little bit. Maybe that could make it a bit more interesting to play Annihilation Legion if they got really good. Overall, I feel like their combination of speed, damage and durability just isn't quite enough to get them there. Overall, definitely a new codex that needs its internal balance sorting out. It'll be interesting to see if Games Workshop chooses to give them any updates, given that their codex was a fairly recent one. In any case, hope you've enjoyed a few thoughts as to potential balance changes for a bunch of armies in Warhammer 40k. Let me know for your faction which units you think would need to go up and which units would need to go down to make the army both more externally and internally balanced. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new ones just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description down below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, an enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.